In Daniel 12, verse 1, it says, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which stands for the children of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of those that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that shall be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as stars forever and ever. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." Many of you can look around and see how fast technology is advancing. In the last 30 to 40 years, you can see the explosion of technology, AI, computers, and internet. And as a result of this technology, man's knowledge has grown astronomically. Things were practically the same for thousands of years until only the last 200 years ago. Until 1822, life was very brutal and short and limited. No printing presses, no air conditioning, no modern medicine, only manpower and horsepower. Then came the steam engine and the steamships and the railroads, and a little bit of improvement in farming and a little bit of improvement in plumbing. That's all we got in the 100 years ending in 1922. But in the last 100 years, we got distributed electricity, the automobile, recording, movies, airplanes, travel, air conditioning, and the modern medicine. In the past, if you wanted to have 3 children, you have to have 6 children, because 3 died in infancy. Half of the children died in infancy. It's amazing the advancement in civilization, especially in the last 100 years. And yet, even though people have so much more than they ever have had in civilization's history, and yet, because of envy, nobody is happy with what they have. They have 6 times more than they used to have. They're better off than the middle class people in poor countries here in the United States. The poor are very well off. And yet morally, spiritually, people are so far from God. Paul wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy 3:1. He says, "This you know, that in the last days perilous times shall come." Now I want you to compare with what Paul says with today. Verse 2 says, "For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy." In other words, that in the last day, children will be disobedient to their parents. And if you go back just 40 or 50 years back, you'll find that children had far more respect for their adults. But now we have a world full of children that have little or no respect for the elderly. And Paul continues in verse 3, "Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth." Then he says, "Now Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth, men of corrupt minds, reprobate, concerning the faith. Now these names of these two men are not found or mentioned in the Bible. They're supposed to have been two of the magicians that resisted Moses in Exodus 7:11 and who opposed their miracles to those of Moses and Aaron. And it says men of corrupt minds. In 1 Timothy 6:5, Paul writes, perverse disputing of men of corrupt minds, and disputing the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. From such withdraw yourself, supposing that gain is godliness. Gain means worldly prosperity. And then we said that they had reprobate minds, reprobate concerning their faith. So far as the Christian faith is concerned, that's what the word reprobate means. And we see again in Romans 1:28, and says, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do things which are not convenient. The Greek word for reprobate is adokimos, which means failed, not standing a test, not approved. And that's used normally of metals and coins, that they are tested and not seeing any value. Thus they are cast away. In verse 22, he says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like unto corruptible man, to birds, to four-footed beasts, and creeping things. That's why God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and likewise also men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one towards another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, receiving in themselves the recompense of their error which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, deceit, debate, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. The last big change in this world began in World War I, or the First World War, a major global conflict that began in 1914 and ended on the end of 1918. It's referred to as the Great War. Queen Elizabeth died at age 96, and a new era began. When she began to be queen in 1952, it marked an era after World War II ended. Each major change in the world has been marked by wars, revolutions, civil wars. Some of them were world wars, other more local wars. And we're like this war now, with the Russians and the Ukrainians, many nations involved behind, and now Israel. They want what they do not need or does not make a difference. People greedy for everything. You might need a watch to know the time, but you don't need it to be a Rolex. You might need transportation, but you don't need it to be a luxury car. But because of the greed, people want what others have. No, envy has always been present, even the Jews when they came out of Egypt. So much so that God had to make a commandment saying, "Thou shalt not envy your neighbor's donkey." Most major world changes that God ordains, there has been a shaking of everything. And in that change, there's always a reflection on earth of wars in one way or another. And all is changing. And it seems like protections are being stripped. We see so many lights of God passing on, like the death of Queen Elizabeth, that was a reference for the world. And even here in the United States, we see the crumbling of structures that give away. The old structure crumbles and the new structure begins. Shortly before the cross, Jesus said in Matthew 23:37, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you that kill the prophets and stone them which are sent to you, how often would I have gathered your children together, even as a hen gathered her chickens under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left to you desolate." One day it'll be too late to gather his chicks, but today you still can come and be protected. For his disciples that were very close to him, Jesus gave instructions even on how to escape that evil that would come. He said, if you're in a field or in a mount, don't go back to your house to look for anything. Just flee. And you know, in that destruction of Jerusalem, not one Christian follower of Jesus was killed, yet 1 million Jews died. As Psalm 91 says, only will you be safe under his wings. Psalm 91 verse 4 says, he shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings shall you trust. And his trust shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid for the terror by night, nor the arrows that fly by day, nor for the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. So let us draw near, let us come, let us renew our vows, because dangerous and difficult times are upon us. Let us, as the chicks that Jesus said and spoke of, let us run towards him. Let us come and let us hide under the protection of his wings. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you. May the Lord have mercy on you. And may the Lord grant you, in these difficult times, to have peace. Amen.